Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and today I just want to show off my latest pawn shop find. So this is a 1968 vintage Framus Single Cut guitar. So I was visiting my local pawn shop as I usually do, and they had this guitar on the wall for $120, and I asked if there was any wiggle room. They said yes. Long story short, I ended up picking this guitar up for about 75 bucks. And if you're not familiar with Framus guitars, they do have modern day versions of these, but the original company was founded shortly after World War II in 1946 by Fred Wilfer, and he was trying to employ displaced Czechoslovakian luthiers with this company. So they started Framus, and they started building more like acoustic instruments like arch tops and mandolins and that kind of a thing. But then in the 1950s, when rock and roll kind of exploded, they moved more toward these solid body versions and single cuts and electric guitars. And this one in particular is in 1968. Now you might have seen the newer Framus version. So in 1990s, Fred Wilfer's son, Hans Peter Wilfer, actually who started Warwick, decided to revitalize the brand, and they took on Framus, which are now made in Germany today. So these old Framus guitars are known for being like super high quality, really nice like German craftsmanship, and you can still find them like used and in pawn shops for really great prices, but collectors are starting to kind of clue into these, and they've been going for pretty good prices for the vintage originals now. And this is just a really cool like quirky guitar. I haven't had a chance to plug it in. I don't know what's original, I don't know what's not, I don't know if it works. So we're going to go through the whole thing on camera today as part of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. So I picked this one up for $75 Canadian, or about, $53 USD, which is a great deal for, a vintage guitar. And this model is kind of particularly interesting because there's not a lot of information on it. I managed to find one other reverb listing that was very, very similar to this guitar. I think that one had a German carve on it rather than the binding on the body, but everything else looked pretty well the same. And apparently this guitar is a pretty rare variant of like a Hollywood from 1968 that was never listed in catalogs. So kind of a very unique, kind of rare guitar. And this guitar is pretty interesting. It's got the, the Les Paul shape. It's got a really thin body. It's like a flat top. There's no carve. And it doesn't have like a maple cap on top. It's just a mahogany body. The body's fully bound. It's got this unique kind of way of anchoring the strings to the guitar here, like a kind of a built-in tailpiece. They've got these notches where the strings kind of are anchored in. It looks like it's missing a piece that might have been here at one point. Using this picture as a reference, you can kind of see that. It's got the original knobs, confirming from this other listing I found online. And it's got a roller bridge that is height adjustable. It's got these crazy looking pickups, which kind of look like telly neck pickups, but in a different kind of a housing. It looks like they're height adjustable. There's also a bunch of like screw holes in the top here that I'm not sure what those have been from. We're going to take this whole thing apart and get a better look. We've got a three-way switch, one volume, one tone, and this is the input jack. The body is solid mahogany. You can see there's like multiple pieces. If you get in the light, you can see it's probably at least a three-piece body. I see a line here, here, here. And it looks like it's got a nice rosewood fingerboard. It's got the acrylic dot inlays. The frets appear to be in pretty good shape still. We're going to have to go over condition a little more thoroughly later. It's got a 0 fret nut with like an aluminum nut here. It's got a string retaining bar. And this is the headstock. It's got a very uniquely shaped headstock. We've got nice string pull on the strings, like straight. And then you can see here, this is where the logo has fallen off at some point. I believe the logos used to be like a plastic kind of a decal thing that they used to put on there, but it's missing. I'm not sure if the pickups work, so we're gonna have to plug it in. I'm hoping so, because if there's a dead pickup, I'm not gonna be able to find a replacement, or it's gonna be very difficult. Might be able to find one on eBay, I guess. And here's a look at the pieces. You can see a little bit better in this light here, I think, if I... maybe not. But 1, 2, 3, it looks like it's a 4-piece mahogany body. What's kind of interesting about this one is it's back routed. So normally on a Les Paul, this route is done between like the mahogany and the maple cap, so you don't see it. And then you just have the cavity plate on the back on a Les Paul, and then just the switch plate here. But because of that, we get this giant cavity cover that covers the route. Both the front and the back of the body are bound, and this is a bolt-on neck made in Germany. So these vintage necks are pretty unique. You can see how many layers. So these are a multi-laminate neck, all glued together, and the wood that they're using is beech wood. So these necks are known to be very, very strong because there's so many pieces of wood glued together. And yeah, they're just very, very sturdy necks. Very resistant to temperature and humidity. They were also using maple for these for some years, but this doesn't look like maple. This definitely looks like beech wood to me. And the guitar is in decent shape. It's got scratches and dings and everything else, but there's no like big chunks missing out of it or anything that affects playability. The frets appear to be in pretty decent shape, and I'm not sure if it works yet. But the truss rod, I just went ahead and turned it, and it seems to turn. So I've got high hopes we can get this up and running fairly easily. So let's go ahead and put it on the bench and take a look at some of the specs. Weighing in at quite a lightweight 7 pounds, 3.3 ounces, so just a hair over 7 pounds. So I was worried when I plugged in my machine here that these aren't working because I'm not getting any readings out of any pickup. But when I plug in my amplifier, the tone, the volume, and the switch are working. So there might be some strangeness happening with the electronics. It might be a circuit board or something, even though, I mean, this is 1968, so I'm not really sure what's back there, but sometimes the way it's wired up can affect how it's reading on these. You don't get a reading on the machine, so we'll have to take it apart to look further into that. And where the strings are anchored is pretty interesting. It's basically a plate that's recessed into the body here, and it's got these grooves where the strings can go in the hole, and then it narrows so the ball end of the string can't get out. And it looks like there was a cover at one point too. I think the old pictures that on that other guitar that I found that's very similar had a cover, so that's been removed or missing. And then here's a look at the roller bridge. So we've got these roller bridge saddles here as the wheel adjustments for height, and those are just anchored into the body here. So let's have a look at these pickups. And the pickups are like single coils. They look like Telecaster pickups, but they're in sort of a housing here that you can adjust up or down with these two screws, and then that whole housing is kind of mounted to the body of the guitar. So let's have a closer look here. Here's a look at the bridge pickup. Let's have a look on the underside here. Not a lot of wire here. I want to make sure I don't wreck anything. So there it is. It's kind of looks like there's a lot of electrical tape and some sort of wire there. I think that's keeping that foam in place, and the foam is there so you can adjust the pickup height, so you can go up or down, which does work. And then on the back you can see the magnet. It does look very much like a Telecaster pickup, and it looks like the magnet's covered with some sort of brass foil. And then we have our pickup route, which is kind of crudely routed out there. It's not so clean. There's kind of different layers there. So, but it does look like solid mahogany. And then that just mounts to the body like so. And then a quick look at our neck pickup, which is more of the same. We've got a Telecaster style single coil pickup, and that electrical tape, and then the route is very similar to the bridge route. It's kind of, it looks like they just took just enough material just to sit the pickup in there, like so. And then here's a better look at the roller bridge. It's there's no branding on the bottom or anything, and the rollers are a little stiff. Well, one is anyway. I'm sure I could move that a little bit to try to, oh, there it goes. So yeah, actually all the rollers are moving nice and freely now. That one was just kind of stuck on something for a sec there. And then the way you adjust the height is basically just like on a Les Paul, Gibson. They've got these little adjustment wheels that you can move up or down, and that'll make the bridge go up or down. And then here's a look at the knobs. The knobs are pretty cool. They're all metal. They're very heavy duty, and they have a V and a T for volume and tone. And this three-way switch is super heavy duty with a big giant nut on there. It feels really sturdy. And let's have a quick look at the electronics here. So there's only 2 screws left in all this whole cavity cover. So I'm going to see if I can find some other screws that could use to replace that. Actually 3 screws. I missed one here. And there's just these little tiny black screws. Let's have a look here. Okay, so this looks like a lot more like professionally routed. It's stepped down there so that the cover sits flush, and these looks like nice clean routes. So the other routes must have had to been so shallow that they couldn't use a bit or something like that. So yeah, this looks a lot more professional in the back here. And I can see why we were having trouble with the ohm reader, with the multimeter. It's because they're actually using a breadboard in there. So a breadboard's like a really old school style, kind of like a circuit board. They use it on old pedals and stuff like that. It's pretty much like a circuit board, but everything's hand wired in. And you've got kind of an orange drop capacitor there. We've got another capacitor here. And I don't want to take this all out, so you can just kind of see what's there. We've got full-size LESA pots. They've got this kind of old school output jack there, and again they route this whole part just for these wires here. Like normally on a Les Paul this would be in between the maple and the mahogany layer. So if they do it on the back, they back routed this, so they have to put a whole channel in for the back, and that's what this giant phallic shaped cavity cover is for. It's very phallic. I'm sure you can imagine what I mean. Okay, and then here's a look at the 3-way switch. It's one of the big giant like L-shaped ones. And yeah, it seems to work in good shape. The electronics all work good on this guitar still. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm just going to remove the neck from the body. These are the bolts that they're using. And here's a better look at the neck plate. It's quite a bit smaller than like on a Fender. It says made in Germany. Let's go ahead and remove the neck. Okay. Let's see. So on the neck, it actually shows our model number, which is the 5250. And yeah, you can see all those, like every single one of those lines is another piece of beechwood they use for the neck. So this is like a multi-laminate neck, and they're known to be very, very strong. And let's have a look at the neck cavity here. And yeah, there's a look at the neck cavity. It looks like it was shimmed up at some point. We've got a playing card in there and some more wooden shims at the bottom. So that's just to help with the neck angle here. And it was playing pretty well before, so I don't know if I want to mess with that or not. I'll probably just leave it as is, and then we can adjust it further need be. As far as the neck cavity goes, there is some factory rating on there, but it's really hard to see, and it's underneath the shim, which is apparently glued in. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. And yeah, this is a really rare model. It's if you Google this model number Framus from 1968, you can't even find another example. So yeah, quite a rare guitar. I got kind of lucky like that way. And while it's apart, I just want to have a quick look at the condition. So yeah, you can see the condition here in the light. It's got scratches and gouges and dings and doinks and dents everywhere. There's some screw holes that have been filled in on the body here. I'm not sure what those were. Maybe there's a pick guard on here at one time or something like that, or maybe they had these pickups mounted in a slightly different spot. That seems to be what that screw hole was, or maybe that one. So I'm not really sure about those. But yeah, it's got a patina to it for sure. It looks like there are some gloss cracks on there, kind of some checking. It's definitely look like a well-used guitar. The binding looks pretty cool. It's kind of been yellowed with age, and it's bound on the front and on the back. And let's see here. Yeah, you can see some of the seam lines where the woods were joined together, and the back's got its share of scratches and dings. But pretty cool patina to it. It definitely looks worn in, kind of has some mojo for sure. And then here's a better look at the neck. The neck is rosewood. It has a nice old worn in rosewood look, and the frets are pretty low, but kind of like a wide flat sort of a fret. It's got the acrylic dot inlays. The neck feels nice and rounded over probably just from years of playing it. And the frets are in decent shape. There's a little bit of pitting there, but overall quite good. I'm going to go ahead and polish these up a little bit so they're nice and shiny. And then here's a look at the back of the neck. Neck's in good condition. A couple little scrapes and dings. It looks like the tuners must have been replaced at some point. These are made in Germany Schaller tuners, but the original screw holes don't quite line up on the back of the neck. If you look carefully, you can see the serial number here. So the serial number is 5464268M, and as far as what I could find on there for research on the internet, the 68 is what signifies the year. So this is a 1968 Framus 5/250 Hollywood. Yeah, and then here's a better look at the headstock. It's got a pretty unique shape to the headstock. It's kind of like a big flipper. It's got the string tension bar here, and then it's got a 0 fret nut with kind of a aluminum string holder nut there. And then you can see it's got a Gibson style truss rod there that you can adjust. It's a little bit smaller, I think, than a normal Gibson, but this truss rod works well. It adjusts, still works, and there's no thread showing, so there's lots of room for adjustability. And then here on the headstock is where that Framus logo has fallen off at some point, but you can still read it. I just found the radius, the closest radius I can get is a 9.5. That seems to be the closest I can use with the gauge here. It's a 24 3/4 inch scale on this guitar. Alright, at this point I'm going to put this thing back together and I'm going to restring it and set it up, and then we can check the setup. So it was quite easy to get a really nice setup on this guitar. So using my notch straight edge here, you can see that there is very little relief in the neck. There's just a tiny little space between the notched straight edge and the fingerboard, so that means the truss rod's set nice and tight, the neck's nice and straight. Over here in the 3rd fret, you can see that when I use the 3rd fret that the string is almost hitting that 1st fret there, so it tells me we've got a nice straight neck, we've got good action over here, and the 0 fret nut is in a good position. And then using our depth gauge at the 12th fret, we've got just over a 1 millimeter on the low E, and on the high E that's just under a 1 millimeter. So that's how I like to set my guitars. Nice low action. It's hard to get that low of action on a non-quality guitar because you're going to have fret issues and buzzing, but I did try out this guitar and there's no fret buzz anywhere, and I'll just show that now. I'm just going to go through the whole fretboard to show there's no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. Yeah, no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. There's not even a hint of buzz. And this guitar plays great. It rings out nice and long. Lots of sustain. Sounds good acoustically too. And it's got a lot of vibration in this guitar too. You can feel it all over. The neck feels really good. It's got nice rounded edges from play over the years, and there's no sharp frets at all. It's nice and smooth. And the neck feels good. It's a little bit small for my hands. I got large hands here. It feels a little bit like narrow and kind of a skinny neck, but I think it's got a little bit of like a V neck to it. It kind of feels like an old Martin style neck, kind of. So let's go ahead and get some neck specs here. So width of the nut is a very skinny 1.57 inches or 39.9 millimeters. And then at the 12th fret, that is a 1.94 inches or a 49.31 millimeters. Neck depth at the 1st fret is 0.91 inches or a 23.28 millimeters. This seems like it's thick, but I think we're just getting like the very top of the neck, and like I said, it's more of a V-shaped neck. And then at the 12th fret here, that goes up to a 0.96 inches or a 24.41 millimeters. And here's a look at that neck profile. So yeah, you can see it's a super V-shaped neck at the 1st fret there, but by the 12th it kind of rounds out a little bit more. But yeah, very interesting neck profile. And that's why it measures a little bit bigger than it feels, because we're measuring right from the top point there. But it's got like very kind of narrow shoulders on the neck. And trying this guitar on a strap, and it just has 0 neck dive. It stays right where it should be. And it's super light. Alright, I'm plugged into my Dr. Z amp, my prescription extra strength, and I'm just going to use a Flint Strymon for a little bit of reverb. I'm going to go through each pickup combination clean and then with a little bit of dirt. Yeah, it sounds really great, clean. It sounds really vintage and warm, just like a really kind of warm single coil, you know, style guitar. Let's go ahead and try it with a little bit of dirt. Alright, so what are my final thoughts on this, you know, $50 US, $75 Canadian pawn shop find that ended up being a 1968 vintage Framus Hollywood variant, and a very kind of a rare model. This is why I always go to pawn shops, because, you know, these lesser known guitars that kind of fly under the radar, you couldn't even really tell this was a Framus because, again, the logo had fallen off. So I'm sure someone tried to do a little bit of research on this and then came up short, and then just kind of figured it was a cheap old, you know, or maybe like a Japanese copy, something like that. So they had it priced very, very low, and yeah, if you know what you're looking for, you can find some great deals at pawn shops still. Maybe not on the Gibson or a Fender, but some of these lesser known models that are still, you know, under the radar. And I really enjoyed this little guitar. It's it plays, it sounds great. I didn't have to do much to get a really good setup on here. It didn't need any fretwork. The neck was still straight as an arrow after all these years. I barely had to adjust the truss rod at all. And again, it's this crazy amount of piece neck that makes these things very, very stable. It's like, I don't know, it looks like about 50 pieces of laminated beechwood for the neck. And the body was mahogany body, which kind of reminds me of a little bit like a Gibson Melody Maker or something like that, like back in the day. It plays great, low action, no fretting out anywhere. The neck is kind of strange. It's a V-shaped neck, and it's quite narrow, like a skinny little neck. It feels chunkier than it is because it's got a really pronounced V-shaped neck, so there's like no shoulder on the neck, but you kind of feel it in your palm is kind of chunky. It's kind of strange. Guitar is super light, just over 7 pounds, and it seems to be really well made. I didn't notice any like quality issues or anything else like that. The guitar is in decent shape. There's definitely marks and scratches and dings, but nothing that affects playability. The frets are still in good shape. The 0 fret nut worked really, really well. Got nice low action over here, and nice low action at the 12th fret too. No buzzing or fretting out anywhere. The pickups are interesting. It sounds like a vintage Telly style pickup. Like the neck pickup sounds like a vintage Telly. The bridge pickup sounds like a vintage Telly too. Just a little bit hotter and a little bit more jangly because it's in the treble position. But still pretty warm sounding pickups. Not a lot of treble there. It sounded really good. It just sounded very unique. It sounds quite a bit different than a lot of other guitars, which is kind of cool. All the parts on it seem to be original, other than the machine heads, which have been swapped out for some made in Germany Schaller. This guitar had no neck dive and sat great on the strap. And again, this is a pretty rare like variant, kind of a model of this. I could only find one other example on the internet, and that one was selling, I think, sold for around $1,400 Canadian. So a really good deal. I think between this and a couple of garage sale guitars I've got this year, I've been doing pretty well. Luck is holding out. So check your garage sales and check your pawn shops. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for tuning in to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and I'll have more for you really soon. Thanks a lot.